A very good evening to all of you. Welcome to yet another Zoom call organized by Jungle Bells. Jungle Bells is an exclusive women's wildlife group. We are into wildlife related activities, conservation, wildlife tours. Before we begin, I would like to request all of you to turn off your cameras and switch off your microphones, please. Thank you. If you have any questions for the guest, please type them in the chat box and we will address them after his talk. Also, if you want to receive any further communication from us about our events, please type in your email addresses and phone numbers in the chat box. We are happy to say that we have Sanjay Deshpande of Sanjeevani Developers associated with us today. Thank you so much. Let's move on something about our guest today for today's webinar. We have today with us Vinod Bharatakke. Vinod is a full-time wildlife photographer and an independent filmmaker. He finds happiness roaming in the wilderness. He has traveled to wildlife sanctuaries and national parks across the country to observe and photograph the denizens of Indian jungles. In his free time, he makes sure to visit wildlife hotspots in and around Pune. He posts as @Vinod Bharatakke on Insta. He has received many awards and citations. Few of them are: he was a finalist for the NHM Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2010 and 2015. A special mention at Burrard Lucas Wild Photo 2016 photo contest. Conducted photography workshops and judged quite a few photography competitions also. Vinod started wildlife photography in 2004. He is driven by the passion for wildlife and has traveled to various sanctuaries and national parks across India and abroad. He visits Spiti Valley in Himachal Pradesh every year in search of the elusive snow leopard, has made a short film on Kibber Wildlife Sanctuary, Himachal Pradesh, showcasing the rare animals of this remote high altitude sanctuary. A little bit about Vinod. He's a postgraduate in electronics and has various IT certifications. Besides traveling and wildlife photography, he also likes playing chess. Without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Vinod and we'll directly start with his showcase of the photographs. Hi Vinod, good evening. You can unmute yourself. Vinod, you need to unmute yourself. You're still on the mute. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I was on mute because I was not allowed to unmute. There were some permissions issue. So, good evening, everyone. I am Vinod Bharatakke, and thanks, Hemangi, for wonderful introduction. Can you confirm if you can hear me? Can someone confirm, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So again, thanks, Hemangi, and good evening, everyone. So today's topic is the perfect capture. So according to me, the perfect capture is a relative term. So what is a perfect photo for me may not appeal to everyone, but in general, a good photo usually has certain qualities. The photo basically should be able to generate a wow factor. It should depict the subject beautifully. It can be a good portrait photo or a well-composed photo with nice clean background, I mean without any distractions. So and ideally the photo, I'm talking about the wildlife photo, should tell us a story about the subject, about its habitat or its behavior, a unique behavior. Every insect, bird, mammal has a unique behavior. So your photo should be able to tell that story. So for me, a perfect photo, a perfect capture is, I mean, is a difficult term because photography is a continuously, it's a continuous process. I mean, it's a learning process. You have to keep on learning. The technology is evolving so fast. Habitats are changing, unfortunately. There is a habitat loss which is happening, and it is the main reason which is causing issues for wildlife. So, this perfect capture is a relative term, as I told you. But for me, I have experienced certain wildlife moments which I would like to share with you through my wildlife photos. And certain photos are very close to my heart, and they are kind of perfect capture for me, may not be for everyone. So in today's session, I will try to share different wildlife photos which I have clicked across India and around Pune and in Khyber. I have divided this entire session into 3 small parts. The first one is photos from various destinations across India. The second part will be photos of wildlife around Pune. And the third section will concentrate on wildlife of Khyber Wildlife Sanctuary. So, what I would like, I'll start sharing my screen. I will stop my video because there will be some delay in photos, in displaying the photos, because some photos are really high quality photos, 10 MB, 12 MB photos. So I'll first stop sharing my video and start sharing my screen. Okay, so I hope you can see this screen. This is today's agenda, as I just described, 3 sections. Yeah, 3 sessions, Indian wildlife. Then specifically, I will show you some photographs which I have clicked in and around Pune. And then wildlife of Khyber. But before I, start displaying, showing all the photos, I would like to, discuss a small topic. What is the advantage of wildlife photography? Like, it is a great hobby. Most of us, we love wildlife, we love traveling, we love nature. And we do, quite a few of us have cameras. Even mobile cameras are very good nowadays. So what is the advantage of wildlife photography besides being a great hobby or passion? So I think, there are various advantages of wildlife photography. The first one, not in particular sequence as such, is in research. So basically, documentation of species is very important in scientific research. It can be a plant, a small insect, microorganism, or a big mammal, or it can be documentation of habitats of different animals, or different mammals basically. So from smallest insect to the largest mammal, there are hundreds of species out there. And in India, our biodiversity is just awesome, it's super rich. So all this needs to be documented. And while photographing these habitats and subjects, subject includes everything, is a great thing. It will definitely help in research. In fact, wildlife photograph, or even in general photographs, they have a major influence in creating protected areas. So good quality photographs are essential in a conservation campaign, to get the message across. The next advantage, I think, is the education. While educating, students, research people, if I have, like for example, I have to tell someone about elephant, rather than telling and describing the mammal, if I show certain photographs and then describe that particular subject, it will be easy to understand. Okay, so education is one aspect. Another most important thing is tracking or monitoring some critically endangered animals, like say snow leopard, tiger, or there are many other mammals, birds, insects, which can be, using photos we can track them, monitor them. Like for example, say tiger keeps on moving, territory marking from one place to another place. And if like just like radio collaring is one thing, sometimes photographic records help track the movement of a certain mammal, certain animal. And the last but not the least, I mean, it's hobby. It's a great hobby, great profession. Like it's a profession for some people, but for me, it's a hobby. It's my passion. Like photography has given me something to do and learn in my spare time. So last 18 years, and I'm still learning new techniques, new cameras, new softwares. So life is better. In general, life is better when we have a purpose and something interesting to look forward to. So photography gives me that sense of purpose. Photography also gives me a reason to travel and explore new places. Believe me, I have made hundreds of friends across India just because of this great hobby. So I know life has become really interesting, and I'm really grateful for that. So with that, I will just switch from this presentation to photos, and I'll start sharing some of the photos which I have clicked across India. So I don't know, there is some line which is displayed. I don't know why it is coming, but this is the photo which I have clicked in Amboli. I don't know how to, yeah, now much better, I guess. Okay, so this is a small insect, just like a mosquito. And what I like about this photo is, like, I had to use external light and it was raining. So this interesting bokeh effect which is generated on the right hand side, and the subject is visible and the background is not visible. So nice photo for me. So I have decided to include it in this presentation. So actually, I was really confused because I had almost more than 400 photos yesterday when I decided I started preparing this presentation. But then I thought I won't be able to do justice to all these photos. So I have reduced it to about 200 odd photos. And I'll be sharing some of experiences while displaying the photos also. So this is another photo, again, endemic species from Amboli. This is Amboli toad. Again, a macro photography, which people usually do during monsoon seasons or just after monsoons at Amboli. Endemic species again. This is one more photo of, I call it abstract kind of photo. I mean, the entire butterfly is not visible. I purposefully took this photo using 300 mm lens. This is a full frame photo. I mean, I clicked it that way. So basically wanted to, convey some kind of symmetry between the wing and the leaf of the tree. The next photo is again from Amboli. This is bioluminescent fungus, and again taken with using at night using very high ISO. And this is an interesting phenomena. This fungus is kind of self-illuminating. I mean, displays this greenish colored light in the pitch darkness actually. So again, next photo. If you see, this is a dragonfly which has just come out of its pupa. Again, a macro photo, and you can see the details. I mean, nowadays with 100 mm or even 180 mm macro lenses, you can get details of any small insect. I'll go ahead with what my plan is to go show as many photographs as possible. So for most of the photographs I will just skip through, and for some photographs which I have some interesting experiences or some story to tell you, I'll share that with you people. But please, in case the photo is not visible or I am not audible because of whatever reasons, or maybe internet bandwidth issues, just let me know immediately. Okay, so next photo is this is Deccan banded gecko. This is banded gecko actually. I have clicked this photograph using a wide angle macro lens because I wanted to include the habitat along with the details of this small lizard gecko. So this was clicked at Sirsi, a place called Sirsi in Karnataka. Just like Amboli, it is very, very rich. I mean, in terms of all these herpetofauna, all these geckos, lizards, snakes, frogs, etc. The same species, Deccan banded, the banded gecko with different perspective. So I like this angle much better. Again, there are many subspecies of this banded gecko. So I am not sure whether it is Deccan or any other, but this is definitely a banded gecko. Another specimen from Amboli. This is green keelback. So again, what I will do, I think there is slight delay in displaying the photos. So I'll wait for maybe a second or so after changing the photo. Changing the next, going to the next photo. So this photo is pit viper, Rumpnose pit viper. I clicked this photo at Sirsi again. As I told you, it's a great place to click photos of different variety of snakes, frogs, and other macro subjects. And just during monsoon or after monsoon, it's the place to visit. This is the famous Malabar pit viper. Clicked at Amboli. Again, no photography skills as such. Just if you have a good macro lens, you just have to make sure the background is good, clean background. It may not be possible every time, but yes, sometimes. This instead of clicking the entire scorpion, I decided to click only the sting of the scorpion. So it looks good sometimes, a different kind of photo. This one is the close-up of green wine snake. Nothing great except the angle and the close-up, which I got because of the 100 mm macro. So this was just the introductory section. I'll switch over to bird photos. This is everyone knows Brahmani kite. I clicked this photo at a place called Kundapura near Mangalore. We were in a boat and our target species was different. Actually, I went there to shoot osprey because that place is very famous for osprey. There are good perches and you get good photos of osprey. I'll show you the photos next. But meanwhile, while waiting for osprey, I noticed that this Brahmani kite was trying to land on another boat, and I took this opportunity to click the photo. These kites are primarily scavengers. They mainly feed on dead fish, crabs, and occasionally they hunt live prey such as small mammals like bats or hares. These birds have really adapted well to the human presence and usually found near human settlements in coastal region. So the next is banded bay cuckoo. I like the photo because it is difficult to get this cuckoo on such a clean perch with good background. Luckily, everyone knows Old Magazine House. This was clicked at Old Magazine House, Dandeli. Once you are ready and with your equipment, it is very easy to get such photos. This is black and orange flycatcher. Clicked near this place in Tamil Nadu. There is a garden, I forgot the name of the garden, but very famous, and anyone who wants to click this endemic bird, this is endemic bird only found in that region. This place is Kotagiri, yeah, I remember the place. So click near Kotagiri. The next photo is black-neck blue or monarch, again clicked at Dandeli. So sometimes with latest cameras which support high-speed photography, FPS term, frames per second, you can use the burst mode and you can get such photos very easy. This was clicked again at Dandeli. We were in a boat, and it was a boat ride to. We were searching for various hornbills and fish eagle. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, but I noticed this striated heron sitting on a beautiful rock, and the light was awesome. So that's why I clicked this photo. The next one is painted spurfowl. So this was clicked at Hampi, near Hampi actually, and this bird is otherwise very difficult to shoot. But then there are certain places, certain heights across India where you can get these species very, very easily. So this was one of them. What I like is the plain background, because there is no distraction and the viewer's attention just directly goes to the bird. This is the puff-throated babbler, again clicked at Old Magazine House, Dandeli. Although sometimes it might be difficult to shoot this bird, but hides, certain hides like this Old Magazine House, they give you great opportunity to click some difficult to shoot birds. This was clicked again at Kotagiri. We were traveling in a car and we noticed that these hill mynas are very active in that particular region. We took a stop and then waited for some time, and I clicked many photos of these hill mynas, and this photo I like particularly because obviously no distraction, clean background, and this hill myna was calling. In Marathi it's called Sarika, so it's known for it sings beautiful songs. This one is the greater racket-tailed drongo. Again, if you want to click this photo, you have to go to a place called Thattekad in Kerala. Otherwise, this bird is very difficult to shoot. I mean, you must have noticed in various jungles. As soon as you try your vehicle and try to shoot, take a photo, this bird just flies away. Very difficult. But as I told you, certain places, it is very, very easy to get photos of some species like this one. This one is the shikra. Again, we were in a hide waiting near a water hole and waiting for this Asian fairy bluebird. Unfortunately, I didn't get that photo because the shikra was around and no other bird came to that place. Then we decided to shoot shikra itself, and I got quite a few photos. This one has some movement, some action, so I selected this photo. Again, sometimes the subject may not be great, but if you include something else, the photo might become interesting. So because of the inclusion of the flower, there is a different dimension. I mean, the photo looks nice. And the other blitz starling. This is, by the way, two blitz starlings, and one was calling. So clicked near Thattekad. Another photo of a very common bird. This is oriental white-eye. As you can see, the mother is trying to feed a small berry to its chick, and such photos are like, it has a small story itself, and it's pretty evident. So I like such kind of photos. This is a typical portrait photo. This is yellow-browed bulbul, clicked near Munnar. I'll wait for a couple of seconds before going ahead with the next photo. Okay, so this is Malabar grey hornbill. These certain birds have a typical habit of tossing the fruit or the insect. I mean, most of the birds either eat fruits, small fruits, or insects, or both. So they usually, before eating the bird, or the small berry, or in this case it is a ficus fig fruit. So they just toss it, and once you know this, then you can, you you can take advantage of your camera. I mean, the burst mode, you can just switch on the burst mode, 8 frames per second, 10 frames per second, and just focus the bird and click many photos, and you can get such moments. It looks, you know, rather than just a bird sitting stationary, certain action like this adds to the photo, and you know, it looks nice. I mean, people like it. So this was clicked at Dandeli. There is very famous place called Timber Depot. Most of the wildlifers know it, wildlife photographers. So I clicked it there. Next one. Not a great photo, but the bird is really beautiful. Malabar Trogon male. So I like it. I clicked in Dandeli again. If you want to click the good photos of this bird, Dandeli is the best place. The next one is mottled wood owl. Again, the photo taken at night time, and basically you have to use external source of light to shoot owls, and you have to use manual mode. You have to underexpose the photo a bit, and of course you have to increase the ISO to take nighttime photos. So this is mottled wood owl, and the next one is spot-bellied eagle owl. This was clicked again at Dandeli, and I was really lucky. I really wanted to shoot this bird for almost 3 years, and I mean, I was not able to even see the bird. And last year I was really lucky. This bird came to the the hotel premises, and the guide came running, and he called me, "Sir, you want to click that photo? I mean, you want to see that bird? It's here." And I was so happy to see this bird finally. It was a lifer for me. I took almost, you know, hundreds of photos of this bird that time, and also I took some videos, small clips of this bird. So for me it's very rare. So the photo is okay, you know, a standard photo, but because if you have to wait for such a long time just to see the bird or, you know, the subject, it becomes special. So this one is osprey. I took this photo in Corbett National Park near Tikala. Everyone knows, I mean, Corbett and Tikala is very, very famous place in Corbett. So we were obviously waiting in our vehicle for the tigers, but what we noticed is this osprey trying to hunt fish. It's a catfish, as you can see, and because we were very happy to see the live hunting, and after catching the fish, it flew directly across our vehicle, and I got this photo. This is the same, the osprey again, and it was against the light, so I took this photo, but this is a different specimen. This was clicked near Kundapura, and I'll show you the next photo. After catching the fish, it sat on a beautiful perch, and this is that species. So this kind of photos you can get at Kundapura from your boat. Boat is moving, but you can get handheld photos like this. You have to use good image stabilized lens to get sharp photos. The next one is Amur falcon. So I have many good photos, good portrait close-up photos of Amur falcon, but I selected this one because this photo was clicked near a small grassland in Palakkad. Palakkad is in Kerala, and this is Amur falcon female, and it is a migratory bird to India. And this falcon was busy hunting small insects and was not bothered by the presence of many people and vehicles around. That small lake in Palakkad, and just besides the lake, there were people who were using that place as a picnic spot. Couple of families, and there are a lot of people around. But this falcon was very, very comfortable, as you can see. So that's why I like this photo. The next one is a simple subject. Two purple sunbird males. But as you can see, there is a tap, water tap, and they were waiting. I mean, they were trying to drink small drops of water, which was dripping through. I mean, here. I clicked this photograph in Meghat National Park. The exact place is Semadoh, if somebody is interested. So we were staying in forest rest house at Semadoh. It was very hot. I mean, the temperature was very hot, 45 degrees or so. Water was, I mean, water holes were most of the natural water holes were dried up, and this photo tells the story of the heat and the importance of water. Very old photo. I think I clicked it in 2012 or so. This is a brownfish owl clicked at Kabini 2 years back. It was raining, and because of the rains, I mean, the rains add to the drama. I like this photo because you can see that effect. And this owl also is, I mean, wet, as you can see. Excuse me. So this is again very old photo clicked in 2004-5 at Nanas near Solapur. Great Indian bustard, supposed to be extinct now. And we were really lucky. We saw almost 7 or 8 different birds during that trip in 2004-5. Now it is very difficult to see even one. You have to go to places like Gujarat or Rajasthan Desert National Park just to see these birds, these beautiful birds. This is a wide-angle perspective of crested tern clicked at Kundapura. Just a different perspective. Wide-angle adds to the habitat. This is Pacific golden plover clicked near Alibag. So these are again migratory birds, and sometimes very difficult to get a photo of this bird unless you know the exact place and where you can just see them in numbers, good numbers. The next one is painted sand grouse. Again, this was like, I mean, I really wanted to see and took a photograph of this bird, but it took me almost 3 years. I visited, Mayureshwar and nearby areas many times, but couldn't see this bird. So finally, I had to go to Nagpur. There is a place near Nagpur which is a breeding ground for these birds, and you get some excellent photos. This is a female, and the next one, this is the male painted sand grouse. Very beautiful bird, and as you can see, because I was lying flat on the ground, the foreground to click this photo. So you can see the foreground as well as background, both are blurred. I mean, this is not a Photoshop. This is an actual frame, which one can get if the bird is on grass and you just lie down flat. The next photo shows both male and female together. So you can see how beautiful the pattern on the body of the male is. Really nice. It's awesome. Oriental honey buzzard, a common bird, but I clicked this. I mean, it was very close when I clicked this photo. This was at Tadoba National Park. We were returning from evening safari. It was about 6:15 in the evening, but we saw this bird sitting next to a water hole, and we had to wait for 4-5 minutes before it really came very close, and I got a close-up shot of this. Lagar falcon clicked at Desert National Park. It is very, I mean, some birds are difficult to photograph, but if you visit a certain place, if you know the place and the species which frequent that area, then you can get some good photos. So Desert National Park is one such place near Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, and you can get some good photos, action photos of Lagar falcon. This is a marsh harrier clicked at Tal Chapar. Tal Chapar is again a beautiful grassland in Rajasthan, and you get a lot of species because that grassland it becomes active from September onwards, and because of a lot of insects and spiny tail lizard, that is the main prey of all these raptors, bird of prey. you can see many eagles and falcons there. This one is again a special photo, Eurasian sparrowhawk. There was a kill, a small bird. It had killed a small bird. It's there in its talons, and we, we were trying to approach. I mean, but this bird was very shy. So what we used to do is park our vehicle some 80, 100 meters away, get down from the other side of the car, lie down flat, and then crawl. And once, I mean, I noticed, there was one more vehicle, the other vehicle, you can see there were photographers too. So I realized, oh, I can take this, photo with this car in the background. The car was moving, but if you time your photo, you can get the moving subject in the frame. The next one is a pretty typical photo from LRK, Little Run of Kutch, and this is short-eared owl. So what usually, a typical wildlife photo has certain characteristics like, eye level, the focus should be on the eye of the bird or the mammal, and the background should be clean. That's it. That usually makes a good photo. This one is peregrine falcon. Again, a typical photo from Little Run of Kutch, but you can see the power, the mighty peregrine falcon, and it had killed this egret. So very interesting behavior. I mean, we were lucky to see the hunt, live hunt. And peregrine falcon, as everyone knows, is the fastest bird. I mean, it can achieve speeds more than 300 kilometers per hour, and with that speed, it just attacks its prey. So you can imagine. I'll show one more photo afterwards of the same bird, same peregrine falcon. The next one is again short-eared owl, but this time the light was against, and sometimes if the light is against, you can get a different effect in your photo, and sometimes it really adds to the photo, like this one. This is again a peregrine falcon from LRK. So a typical peregrine pose, getting ready to fly, and it looks beautiful. So I'm going fast because we have some 200 odd photos, and what I have decided, I'll share my experiences about certain photos in all the 3 sections. So this is the same peregrine falcon. As you can see the egret. I'll just zoom in a bit, and you can see I call this mighty peregrine falcon. You can see with what with tremendous speed and force, it just attacks its prey, and you can see it is the egret's neck is just broken. So you can see the power. I mean, that's the beauty of all these raptors, bird of prey. Now the next section, I mean, same again, the first wildlife across India. This is from Uttarakhand. This was in Sattal, Great Barbet. Again, very easy to get, only at that place. Otherwise, you have to just keep on searching for this bird. You can see them, but getting a good photo might be difficult unless you are in a hike. Rufus sebia. I think the perch adds to the beauty of the bird. That particular leaf on the right hand side, which I have included. I had to remove a teleconverter. So instead of taking the nice close-up shot, I decided to include the perch. Again, a typical photo of this rare to get bird. This is greater yellownape from Sattal, and you can see the bird is really very beautiful. You can just try to zoom in so that you can appreciate the colors of this bird. Again, a different bird, a blue-throated barbet, very beautiful. You can see them easily, but getting a photo might be difficult unless you are using some hide. So this was taken at hide, famous hide in Sattal. Very beautiful bird. This is striated laughing thrush. Again, a nice close-up shot. The light was also good. A striated laughing thrush from Satal. Brown deer, it was against light. Actually, you know, near a place called Chafi, there was a stream and there was very poor light, but light was there. So sometimes against the light photos add different magic to the frame. Again, a typical bird, very easy to see, but very difficult to photograph unless you are in a hide or you know certain places where these birds visit to eat some grains. Or so I got this nice portrait of Kalich pheasant at Satal. Okay, so this is a sad photo actually. I took this photo in Namdafa. Namdafa is a national park in Arunachal Pradesh. And I visited, I think in 2015 I visited this place. So in order to go to Namdafa, you have to trek. I mean, you can't be in your car or so. First you have to go to a place called Deban. Then you have to pack your luggage. You need help of porters, and without porters you just can't do this trek. Then you have to cross. The first thing is you have to cross a river called Namdafa River. After you cross the river, and then the trek begins, and it's all Namdafa National Park. You have to do it walking in search of birds and mammals. And as soon as we crossed Namdafa River, I noticed there was a small pond which was almost dried because of obviously heat and the change of season. And you can see a couple of dead fish, and this small fish was dying, literally dying in front of me, and I took this photo. So it's a sad story actually. The next one is owl, brown-wood owl from Himalayan region. Again, I clicked this near Pangot. So Pangot is, from Satal, you usually go higher up to Pangot, very famous for various rare bird species. This photo I included, again I took this at Kundapura using a GoPro. So GoPro, you can see it changes the perspective. Wide angle lens, 8mm lens has a magical effect. And I think there is some sea animal there, which is the main subject. I don't know the name of this specimen, but I included this photo because of the different perspective. Slender loris, again a nocturnal animal, and I clicked it at Thattekad. The guide there, Eldos, usually shows this to you during a night trek, and using external light source you can easily see and photograph this mammal. A typical photo, but it was harsh light, afternoon light and against light, so I decided to click Silhouette and water splash. So a different kind of photo. So here I used panning technique. This is Nilgai male, and I clicked this photo in little run of Kutch. Panning, as most of you know, you have to use slow shutter speed, usually 1/40, 1/60 in that range, and you have to focus on the subject and move your camera in the direction where the subject is moving. This usually blurs the background and the periphery of the subject. So it gives the nice motion blur effect. Again, I like this photo. The next photo, it's the Indian Gaur, clicked at Kabini during monsoon season. I went there to shoot, basically to see and photograph Black Panther. I was really unlucky. I visited Kabini twice, but didn't see the Black Panther. But I got some beautiful photos of other mammals, including this one. This is, typical monsoon feel of Kabini. This was at Kaziranga. Again, a standard frame actually, but you have to be lucky to be there. I mean, the mother elephant is taking dust bath, and the baby elephant in front is trying to imitate. This is a silhouette taken, of desert fox, LRK. against light. So this is the Desert Fox pub, and it had just come out of its den. It was around 4:30 in the evening, and you know, the LRKs. I mean, many the vehicles. You will see n number of vehicles going from one place to another to collect the salt. I mean, the salt that we eat. So I timed the frame such that I wanted to take that truck in the background as a background. So after a few attempts, it was really easy once you know the timing and the techniques. Again, for me, this is a rare photograph because seeing desert fox pups and you know, she was trying to feed them. I was really lucky. You have to adjust. I had to climb the top of my vehicle to get this eye level photo, but we were really lucky. I mean, it is very easy to get the photograph of desert fox in LRK when there is a den, when there are pups, but getting such moments is not that easy. I have been visiting LRK for last 5 years. I got to see this only once. And again, same pups playing. So, you know, very cute little fellas enjoying outside the den in presence of their mother. Otherwise, they just hide inside the den. Again, slight evening photo of in striped hyena. I took this near in LRK last year. This was at Tipeshwar, 2 wild dog pups, and I noticed that, you know, there was this kingfisher trying to take bath. I mean, it just used to come and take a dip. So initially from left to right, then again right to left, that way. So I knew, I focused on the wild dog pups and I kept clicking the photos and I got this frame. I like such frames, you know, some action. The next one is a sloth bear, and it's very easy to get this kind of photo in Hampi, Daroji National Park. But I decided to use my GoPro, so I knew that the sloth bear is going to visit that place. So I set up my GoPro and I controlled it using a remote, and I got this photo. This is a very rare species. This is Himalayan black bear cub. I took this photo in the Chigam National Park near Srinagar, and you have to walk in that jungle to see the wildlife. There are no routes, vehicles can't go, and you need a guide. There are like Kashmir and Srinagar has its own issues, but yeah, our guide was really good and we were lucky. So I got this family of 3 2 cubs and the female. I have got many photos of them. This is a typical Nagzira leopard. I clicked, I think in 2015 or 2016. This leopard came to the water hole. There were literally 40 to 50 vehicles standing near that water hole. Everybody knew that leopard is there. And this leopard was very bold. It came and it was drinking water for 10 minutes, literally 10 minutes. I mean, I was surprised and got very good photos of this one. The next leopard photo is from Jhalana. So I'll just quickly go through remaining photos because we have 2 more sessions. So in case you have any doubts, I'll try to answer them at the end of the session. I'll just go through the photos. Tiger portrait from Pench. I'll wait for a couple of seconds and then just go ahead. Another famous tigress from Pench. This is Collarwali Mataram, very famous because she has given, 5 different litters she has raised. This is the tigress, very famous tigress from Tadoba, Maya and her male cub 2 years back. Choti Tara and her 2 cubs, again same 2 years back. A young male tiger from Pench, Maharashtra. I like the angle and the eye contact in this frame. the Maya and her cub were playing in the water, and I got some wonderful photos of mother and the male. And you can see the next photo. So basically, these cubs always play with other cubs, I mean the siblings or the mother, and they fight with each other, literally fight with each other. So this next photo, you can see the drama in the photo. These are like, you know, these are the learning sessions the mother gives to the cub, because these cubs usually get separated from mother after they are 20 or 22, 24 months old, and then they have to go on their own, search for new territories, fight with other tigers, and the life is very difficult. The tiger's life is very difficult, so they need all the skills they can get, and mock fights is the best thing, the learning thing for them. So this was the last photo. This was the photo got selected in Burrard Lucas 3 years back. It got special mention. It was displayed in some exhibition. So because of the drama in the photo, this I by mistake included. Actually, this is not this is not from India. This is in I took this the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, Iceland. So that with this, the first session is over. I will hand it over to Hemangi in case anybody has questions.
Yes.
And otherwise, I'll go ahead with the next. I'll just stop my presentation for a moment.
Vinod, we'll just have a small, questions for the audience also. Let's see how much they were attentive or their knowledge on wildlife.
Okay, great.
Yeah, just got a couple of them, not much.
Yeah.
So for the audience who are here right now with us, you can unmute yourself and answer the question. The first one, which of the following national parks is the only existent habitat for nearly extinct Asiatic lions in India?
Actually, audience, you will have to type your answers into the chat box and I'll read it out to them. Yes, that's correct, Ajinkya. It's Gir Forest. Darpan has also answered.
Next. Oh yeah, that's correct. That's great. Yeah, Preeti is there. Again, she's answered the same thing. Thanks so much for this. Next question is, the Bengal tiger is the national animal of India. Why does it have orange and black stripes?
Any idea, audience? Yes, that's correct again, Ajinkya. Camouflage. Hemangi, you want to?
Yes, it's just an explanation. As tigers stalk through tall golden grass, their stripes break up the outlines of the body, making them difficult to spot. This camouflage aids them in stalking unsuspecting prey. That's what it is. The last one of this, how many species of venomous snakes are found in India? If you can name them also, that would be great. Correct, Shilpa, that's right. You know the name?
Do you name any? Or anybody else can name a couple? Ajinkya wants you to repeat the question.
All right. How many species of venomous snakes are found in India? And if you can name them. Yes, Mohan sir, viper, krait, that's right.
And cobra.
Yes, he's given. So it's common krait, yes, Shilpa, that's also right. There's a saw-scaled viper also, so that's also one of the venomous snakes.
You want to repeat all four again, Hemangi?
Yeah, that's whatever is listed here is Indian cobra, Indian krait, Brussels viper, and saw-scaled viper.
All right.
Yeah. So I guess this was small trivia in between. We shall move. Vinod, can we move to snow leopards first, please?
Okay. So you want me to skip Pune, wildlife around Pune, and go ahead?
And we will keep it in the end. People are eager more for the snow leopards.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to just run through the photos of Pune.
Okay.
Wildlife around Pune, but yeah, if everyone wants snow leopard, I'll spend more time on snow leopard and other.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. So just a sec. Give me some time. I will just start sharing my screen. Can you please confirm if you can see my screen?
Yeah, we are able to.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead with Kibar Wildlife Sanctuary and the wildlife scene around Kibar, in and around Kibar. So in my presentation, actually, I wanted to go with in this sequence. Okay. Okay, before I start, this is a typical itinerary which one has to follow if you want to visit Kibar for seeing or for photographing snow leopard and other wildlife which is seen in Kibar, in and around Kibar. So usually it is a 12-day program, 2 days for traveling from Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, whatever your place may be, to Kibar. So first day you go to Chandigarh. From Chandigarh you travel to a place called Rampur. It's a 8-hour drive from Chandigarh to Rampur, and you stay at Rampur. Second day you travel from Rampur to Kibar, 12 to 13 hours. I mean, you reach Kibar only in the evening. So 2 days for traveling, and similarly at the end of the tour you have to keep 2 days for coming back to Chandigarh. And the third day, usually of the tour, if you are planning at the tour to, I mean, if you are in case you are planning to visit Kibar, the third day is rest day because it's a high altitude place. Kibar is about 14,400 feet above mean sea level. So you have to get acclimatized, and the best way is you take rest at least for 1 day. This is the least you can do. There are other things, I mean preparatory things which you have to do before you plan this trip, but I'll cover it later. In case anybody is interested, you can contact me later. So we usually, this is the itinerary I follow every year. I go to Spiti every year, and I keep at least 7 full days for snow leopard tracking. And this is a tip. So just to give you an idea, and now I will show you some photos, like what is the typical journey from Chandigarh, from Rampur, because Rampur is a big kind of big town. So Chandigarh to Rampur, I mean, for us wildlife lovers, I mean, we are not interested. We are not interested in city life or urban life. What we are interested in, wildlife or beautiful landscapes. So the real tour begins on day 2, from Rampur to Kibar, and you see, like, you will see this kind of weather. There is snow everywhere. It's white. These are all mobile photos. I mean, I have divided this section, part again in 2. All these are mobile photos. I mean, the journey, the photos of the journey, and wildlife photos are the photos which I clicked using my cameras. I'll discuss that later. So you can see on the route itself, you have to wait. I will just zoom in, and this is my friend. He's from Belgium actually. He was trying to click a small bird. He was so fascinated. I was telling him, please don't get out the vehicle, because we have to get acclimatized. Don't make fast movements. Go slowly. But this guy was not listening. So this is the scene from a place called Malang. It's again very dangerous place. You have to pass through that place, unfortunately. But the journey is really beautiful. You pass the beautiful Kinnaur Valley from Lahore Spiti area, Kinnaur, Lahore and Spiti, and then you enter a town of Kaza. I'll come to that. But you see such beautiful landscapes, and this is Kaza. So Kaza is kind of headquarters of Spiti, and it is the main town. And it has a post office, it has a bank, it has the only petrol station, gas station is there, and you see how it is. You get all the, it's a marketplace basically. You can do all the shopping here, and then this Kaza is at 10,000 feet above mean sea level. So that is the height of Kaza, whereas Kibar is 14,400. And the distance between Kaza and Kibar is hardly 18 kilometers. So within 18 kilometers, you gain almost more than 2,000-3,000 feet of height. And so on the way from Kaza to Kibar, the landscape is just magical. I mean, these are all mobile photos. It's beautiful. I mean, snow and different shades of blue and white. And the best part is you can see anything during this journey. I mean, literally anything. When you travel from Kaza to Kibar, 18 kilometers, you gain the height more than 2,000, 3,000 feet, and you can see snow leopards, red fox, all anything, all the rare birds in that journey.
Fantastic.
This is,
Lovely.
can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes. No, I just said it's a lovely this thing. And lovely capture.
Okay, sorry. So this just 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers before Kibar, like there is only one route from Kaza to Kibar, and just 2 kilometers before Kibar, there is a very famous monastery, Buddhist monastery called Key Monastery. You can say K-E-Y. Actually, it's K-E-E, but we can use K-E-Y, Key Monastery, and it is the oldest and very, very famous monastery. So this is the entrance of the monastery. This is the actual monastery. You can see mobile photo again. This is just outside the monastery. And then you go to Kibar. So in Kibar, what the typical thing is, it is a small village, about approximately 200 to 300 small houses, typical houses. You will see this small village on the right. If you see, that is the Kibar village, and we were returning from a day-long outing in search of snow leopard. So the typical day in Kibar begins around 6:30 in the morning. It is very, very cold, and people usually get out of the bed after 7 a.m. So you just come out of the bed, freshen up, and have your breakfast. Because usually the guides, or they're also called as trackers, they go into the field early in the morning around 6:30 in search of leopard. It is almost impossible for people like us to see a snow leopard without their help. They have adapted. They are, the local people. They know the terrain like anything, and their eyesight, their sense, their tracking skills are beyond this world. They are just amazing people. And they usually spot the leopard in the morning, sometimes 8 o'clock, sometimes 1 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes even 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they use these walkie-talkies, and then at the hotel you will let you know. I'm calling it as hotel, but it is a homestay. Very nice, cozy rooms, and with heating arrangements are there, because the outside temperature can go to minus 15 degrees in the night time. But once you are inside the homestay, it's very, very cozy. So the typical day is you get up early in the early in the sense 6:30, 7 o'clock, get ready by 8 o'clock. No question of taking bath. Whatever your stay for 7-8 days, no bath. And you just change the clothes. You wear the proper gear, because it can become very, very cold, especially in the afternoon. After 4 o'clock, it becomes freezing cold. I can't describe. You have to be there to feel that temperature, the low temperature. And then if the snow leopard is sighted, we come to know usually by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. If not, you just take your gear, whatever camera you have, and the porters carry everything. You don't have to carry your camera, lens, your tripod. They carry everything. You just have to walk with them. And there is no hurry. You will say, I'm not a trekker, I don't know how to walk through this knee-deep snow. But you just walk very slowly, because once the snow leopard is sighted in the morning, it usually sits there in that area for the entire day till the evening. So you have plenty of time. So just walk slowly with your porter, reach the place, you can see the snow leopard, you can click multiple photos, whatever you want. So that's the typical routine. And the good thing about Kibar is, it is not only snow leopard, it has some beautiful birds and other mammals. I'll show you the photographs. So that's a wonderful place. In fact, I have many friends who have visited Kibar with me just to enjoy the wildlife. They are not photographers. They want to spend quality time with the local people. They want to experience the culture, the monasteries there, or they just stay in the room reading books. I mean, people can do that. So this is the typical scene. Usually, you are a group of photographers sitting on one cliff. There is a valley in between, and the other side of the valley you see the snow leopard. And people usually ask me what is the typical distance between a photographer and a snow leopard. So the distance varies. If you are extremely lucky, it can be 40 meters or so, 30-40 meters. I'll show you the photograph. I have seen it for almost 40 meters across. Or typically 100 meters, 150 meters, sometimes even 300 meters. It varies, the distance varies because the valley, I mean, it keeps on changing, the landscape keeps on changing. So you see a photographer on our side, and on the other side, this is a mobile photo, of course. This is the snow leopard territory. You see those rocky patches. The snow leopard usually prefers those, and you can see it for the entire day. So this is a typical, setup: a tripod, camera, photographers, and on the, I mean, just below the skyline, you will see the village. It's the Kibar village. So the point is, you can see a snow leopard literally using your binocular or camera from the village, most of the times. And this is the family of snow leopard. I took this photo using a binocular and my mobile camera, just to show you, I mean, how it looks. So that's it. I will now actually show the photos, wildlife photos, which I took of different birds and mammals, and then I'll answer all the queries you have. So this is a great roach finch, a very common bird during winter seasons. So yes, the best time to visit Kibar is during winter, that is December, January, February, March. This is the best time for snow leopard, because what happens is during winter months, because of heavy snowfall, the animals like ibex and blue sheep, which is the main prey of snow leopard, they usually come down to the village level from high mountains, because on top, because of snow, the grass is covered, and to eat small shrubs and grass, these animals come very close to the village, and obviously snow leopard has to follow the prey, and the snow leopard also comes down, and sightings become very, very frequent. Another photo of great roach finch. You can see the snow. It was snowing. You can see small flecks, snow flakes in the air. So very beautiful bird. And you get to see different types of finches. Snow finches. This is Brand's mountain finch. Again, very common bird. Easily just outside the homestay, you can see this bird. A different finch again, Tibetan snow finch. Various types of finches you will see, thousands of them. Again, a very common bird just outside Kibar. You have to walk. Now, this is Chukar partridge. The design on its body is really, really beautiful. And usually, excellent camouflage. Like, you can, even though the bird is bigger than, crow in the size, sometimes it is very, very difficult to see the bird unless it moves. If it stands steady and you are in a vehicle, it is very, very difficult to see this bird. This is white-winged redstart or Guldenstadt's redstart. Simple name is white-winged. It also has a white cap. So there are two different types of redstarts. We also see white-cap redstart, which is a different species which is found in Sattal. This is a different one. It has white bars on both of its wings. So white-winged redstart. This is like a crow actually. It is called chough, C-H-O-U-G-H. This is yellow-billed chough. You also see a red-billed chough in Spiti. So both the choughs. And chough because it makes that typical chough sound constantly. Himalayan griffon. I saw it on the route to Kibar, Rampur to Kibar. There were 4 or 5 individuals, and on the road there was some carcass. So just got down from the vehicle and got a headshot of this. Yeah, this is the speciality of Khyber. This is Himalayan bearded vulture or lammergeier. You will definitely see it, but getting a good photo you have to be lucky. So I'll show you another photo. This is the full frame photo. It came so close to me, and this is the frame. I'll just zoom in on this photo a bit so that you will understand why it is called Himalayan bearded vulture. It has a small beard. Same, same bird. Another photo. This is a rare falcon, Secker falcon. I got it just before Gaza. While on day one, actually the day two of the tour, we were traveling towards Khyber. This is a rare falcon, migratory falcon. So you can see this. Again, a rare bird, the golden eagle. So usually the golden eagle nests near Khyber. We know two nests, and every year I visit that place and we see the nest. The nest you cannot approach because it is very difficult to approach the nest high on the cliff. But sometimes you get lucky and you can get such close-ups of the rare beauty. This is as rare as a snow leopard. To get a photo like this, we were lucky. Just pure luck, no photography skills. This is blue sheep or bharal, one of the main prey species for snow leopard. Snow leopard usually kills either blue sheep or ibex, the main species. It also kills the local, the domestic sheep, yak, or even a horse calf. That's the main prey of the snow leopard. A blue sheep male, and it was really 40 feet away from us. It is breeding season actually. March is the breeding season for all these mammals, ibex, blue sheep, even red fox, or even the snow leopard. And it's the ideal time to visit that place. So you see, three different male were chasing a female because of the breeding season, and you can get some beautiful portraits like this. This photo depicts the behavior, the difficult habitat these animals have adapted to. This blue sheep is literally climbing, vertically down on a cliff, and they can do that very easily. That's what I wanted to show you actually, this photo. Otherwise, this is, the habitat, like again, a different backlit kind of image of blue sheep again, and you see the habitat, the mountains, the dry mountains, snow, small shrub. This is the full-grown male ibex, again in its habitat. This is the habitat, the snow leopard habitat also. This is the close-up of ibex, a sub-adult ibex, not a full-grown ibex. A different close-up. This was the frame. I couldn't compose it because it was so close to our vehicle, and it was snowing. As you can see, I'll just try to zoom in, and you can see the snow on its body parts. So again, a beautiful animal, and very, very easy to see in Khyber. All these animals, almost guaranteed. There is, no way you cannot miss it. You will miss it. This is again another photo of ibex running, because unfortunately there was a stray, the stray dog was chasing this, the herd of ibexes, and I got this frame. Typical behavior, I was lucky to see and take this photo. Two sub-adult ibex individuals, mock fighting. Typical behavior. This is a male ibex in its habitat. Trying to include more of a snow just to give a sense of area or habitat where it lives. This is the same group of ibexes I was telling. There were a couple of dogs actually chasing these guys, and they came running towards us. So though we were on the other side of the cliff, I got this photo. This is pika, a small mouse-like creature, and you can see there are more than 12 species of pika which are found in that region, Leh, Ladakh, Spiti. This is the famous red fox. You can see this. I will just zoom in a bit to see the size of its tail. Yeah, it's a nice furry tail, and it has two main purposes. One is it helps in balancing while they are running from one area to other, and the other is it protects them from extreme cold during night. They just wrap it around their body. This is the close-up of a red fox. I got this I think 2 years back while we were traveling from Rampur to Kaza, Rampur to Kibar actually. So before the tour started, usually you see a lot of red foxes in that journey. Again, a beautiful creature. The same red fox in its habitat. Now, just wanted to include habitat. One with snow, one with another. I have another photo also, which has a different kind of habitat, a rocky patch. I'll just zoom in a bit so you will understand. A typical red fox. Again, you see the tail. It's a nice fluffy tail. This is again its habitat. How see this red fox? I mean, it is really camouflage. If it doesn't move and if you are sitting on the other side of the cliff, then it is very difficult to spot these animals. All these animals have adapted, and they are, their colors, their stripes on their pattern or the body pattern. This is like it literally makes them disappear. This is woolly hair. I saw it after visiting Spiti, and on the 4th time. Like, it is very common, not that rare, but I couldn't see it for the first 3 years. And then finally I saw it 2 different times, and I got a very nice close-up shot also. This is a woolly hair, again main prey for fox, red fox, and the snow leopard. This is Tibetan gazelle. Difficult to get in that terrain, but I was lucky. Just beautiful gazelle, just like we get Indian gazelle around Pune and near Saswad. It's called Chinkara. This is Tibetan gazelle. Now, this photo is not that great actually, if you ask me from the point of view of photography, but it has 8 Tibetan wolves, and that it is very special to me. This photo, you see the three wolves on the left, and then there are 5 on the right. So total 8 of them. Believe me, I have to trek literally. From Kibar, I have to travel 120 kilometers from Kibar to another village called Manigaon, and I stayed there with my guide. And then the next day we had to trek for about 3 hours, altitude maybe more than 15,000 feet, and the porter, the guide was the porter. He was guide cum porter, plus one cook we have to carry. And we took 2 tents, one for those 2 guys, one for me. I stayed there in the night, and then in the morning again we trekked for 2 hours, and finally we came to this plateau, and I was able to see, because this is the breeding ground for these wolves. They have the den there, and finally this was my first sighting of Tibetan wolves. I was very happy. So this is for me, this is one of the great wildlife moments for me to see and photo. This is not a great, from photography point of view, this has nothing. The subject is not clear, the composition is not good, no details are visible. But the experience, what I did to see and photograph this, that is in my, etched in my memory. So this is like, not I won't say perfect capture, but achievement for me, some kind of achievement for me. And then the main subject, why the people visit Spiti. I'll just zoom in a bit. A snow leopard male which has killed the young ibex. Snow leopard is known by various names. It is called ghost of the mountains, master of camouflage. Some people call it phantom. Local people call it Shan, S-H-A-N, Shan or Shane, various terms. And it is arguably one of the world's most beautiful and one of the rarest big cats. And photographing this rare beauty is like every wildlife photographer's dream. So these are extremely difficult to spot because of their superb camouflage. Like right now it is in the snow and very easy to spot, but when it is sitting in some small cave or even on a small rock, it is very difficult to spot. Yeah, so this is the main. I'll show you one more photo. I was really lucky. I told you on 2 different occasions. I have been visiting Spiti for last 5-6 years, sometimes twice a year, and sometimes I stay there for month together. 1 month, for 1 full month. Twice I have stayed. So on 2 such occasions, I have seen snow leopard from very close distance. This was one, and the last photo also was very special. Is very special to me. I'll show it to you afterwards. So this is again one more snow leopard photo. A typical snow leopard sitting. I'll just zoom in a bit so that you can see the details. And again a special one, female with 2 cubs. And this we saw literally we had to walk about 500 meters from the village, Kibar village, from our homestay. And we saw this female sitting in a small cave. She was there for the entire day. Even after 6 o'clock, at around 5:36, it becomes very dark. And very cold also. She was there, sitting there only. She didn't even move. I was hoping to get some, action shots, but we couldn't. These are the only photos everyone got that day. Now this is a special photo again. If you see, there is a ibex running at the bottom of the screen from left to right, and slightly on top of that hill, you will see a snow leopard watching the ibex. So there is a very interesting story. Our guides saw this leopard early in the morning, around 10 o'clock. So we reached the spot. The snow leopard was there, sleeping, the entire day. But after 4 o'clock, when the sun went behind one mountain, the temperature suddenly dropped after 4 o'clock. And when the snow leopard just got up, did some stretching, did territory marking. They usually spray urine on nearby small bushes or rock patches to mark their territory. And it noticed that there are 3 male ibexes just about 200 meters away, sitting from where the snow leopard was sleeping. And believe me, the snow leopard started stalking these 3 ibexes. The distance was, as I told you, approximately 200 meters or so, the distance between the leopard and the ibexes. And it took literally 40 minutes or so just to, get closer to these ibexes. More than 40 minutes. It was very slow, and we were very lucky. We really saw or observed that entire phenomena. And after 5 o'clock, the temperatures dropped so much that some of the photographers packed their equipment. They couldn't photograph. They couldn't click even a single photo, because you have to be fully prepared. What all you need, the gear, the heat pouches. So many things are required to getting a good. To getting a photo. Forget about a good photo. And finally, it was about 40-50 feet away from the ibexes when one of the ibex sensed the presence. It didn't see the snow leopard, but it sensed. I don't know, maybe because of the smell, and it gave alarm call. And all the 3 ibexes started running, and snow leopard was unlucky, and so were we, because I really wanted to see first live hunt in my life. I have never seen a live hunt except for birds. Mammals I haven't, and we missed that opportunity. But that entire experience was just out of this world. I mean, I cannot express it in words. I'll go to the next photo. You see the typical snow leopard habitat. Whenever it wakes up in the evening, it just stretches. I mean, it does all kind of stretches, and then it starts moving. Again, a different snow leopard in its habitat. I was lucky. I saw two cubs last year, and this is one of the cubs, snow leopard cubs. The one is just behind them. I mean, there are two in this photo. So you have to be, believe me, you have to be really lucky to see a snow leopard cub. A different photo of these cubs. And this is the last photo, which has a special, memory for me. We saw the snow leopard in the morning, thanks to our guides. But then usually the snow leopard sits in the same place for the entire day. But this particular individual, it moved away. It just vanished into the valleys after just initial half an hour of sighting. And then everyone gave, they just decided to go for birding or do some other stuff or go back to the homestay. But me and two of my friends, photographer friends, we said let's try to search this leopard, and we requested our guides and porters because it was hardly 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they followed that valley, and we started following our guides, porters slowly. We couldn't match their pace, obviously. And around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, we took rest at one particular area, and we were having our lunch when our one of the porters got a call from our guide. They have spotted this male again. It was far away from the initial spot where it was spotted. So we were so tired, believe me, like in the morning we did 3-4 kilometers trek to see the snow leopard. After it disappeared, we again did about almost 4 or 5 hours of trekking, and we were really tired. It was cold, it was snowing. So two of my friends, both of them, they said they are not going. I mean, they are not coming to see the snow leopard because it was down somewhere in the valley. And I took the phone from the porter and I talked to my guide. I asked him, is it very close? He said, sir, it is very, very close. And that was the driving factor. I took help of two of the guides, porters. One was carrying my camera, one was helping me, climb down the valley. It was difficult valley, but because there was too much snow, it was easy, because walking in the snow on difficult cliffs is easy because snow doesn't allow you to fall. It is easy, believe me. But I needed a help from one porter, my friend or guide, whatever you call him. His name is Tashi. And finally, after say half an hour or so, I could climb down that entire valley. Then we walked for a few hundred meters, and again I had to climb up. And then this was the reward. Like, the snow leopard was literally 40-50 feet away from us. There was a valley in between. I mean, the snow leopard was safe because it knew there is a valley and we couldn't cross it. And it was very comfortable. I took almost 500 plus photos of the same individual, same pose. I don't have any other photo. But it was one of the best sightings of my life. I was alone and 4 guides and porters with me. We were all excited. So that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any queries regarding equipment, time, weather, anything, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Vinod.
Thanks a lot.
Indeed, like really, really spectacular images, of the snow leopard, as well as, the other wildlife around in Spiti Valley.
Yeah,
we have
wildlife around Pune, so maybe next time.
Yes, we will definitely do another session, maybe on, wildlife around Pune, so that
Sure.
people can be. So we again have a short
Sorry?
trivia participants for about snow leopards. And again, if you can type your answers in the chat box, and then after that's done, then we will take questions for Vinod. Whatever you've put in the chat box, we will ask them those questions. So the first question is, what is the sound made by a snow leopard called? Anybody? Okay. I guess the common
Repeat the question.
that it's a roar. No, it's not. It's not a growl, neither a roar. It's called chuffing. What they do is called chuffing, and it's a non-threatening sound which is made by blowing air through their nose. So snow leopards cannot roar, and they do growl actually. Yes, they do growl, yowl, mew. These are some of the words, and chuffing is the main word used for their sound. Um, and then, how thick is the fur on a snow leopard? Vinod, you can answer as well. I'm sure you know all the.
No, let them study. Because if they don't know, at least because of that, they will go on to Google and search about snow
Right.
leopard and information. Let them think. Let them do something.
So the fur on the stomach of a snow leopard is nearly 5 inches thick, and it helps them, to survive in the cold and harsh uh, climate in the mountains. And another interesting fact, like Vinod mentioned about the fox, their tails, so snow leopards' tails are also quite thick and massive, and so they help, to shield them from the harsh weather, and they also help them to maintain balance, and the tail could be almost as long as their entire body. And the last question we have is, what is the nickname of the snow leopard? And why? I think Vinod almost mentioned it in his while he was talking about it. Yes, Shan is the local nickname, I think, given by the people there. But overall, I think more commonly, the snow leopard is also known as a ghost of the mountain. And it's mainly because their legendary ability to blend, into their surroundings, making it almost impossible to spot them. So some of your images, Vinod, were really fantastic. Spot the last one especially, they were so well hidden and well camouflaged. So it's really awesome. Yes, Shilpa, ghost of the mountain. So I'm going to just look at questions for Vinod. Shilpa has asked, are there any typical calls made by, the prey for the snow leopard? Just like, the tiger prey has their typical calls. I have to unmute you, I think. Oh.
Yeah, thanks. I was on mute. Was there a question for me? Sorry.
Yeah, Shilpa had asked, are there any typical calls for the prey, the leopard prey? Do they have any typical calls that they
Alarm
make?
calls? You mean question in alarm call? Yes. Every mammal has a different call. Like the call of ibex is different. The call of blue sheep is different.
Okay.
So I don't know how I can describe it, but yes, there is a call, and they use it to alarm each other, as well as maybe some scientists think that they used to. I mean, the alarm call also is to tell the predator that, look, I have seen you. Now you can't hunt me because I have seen you. I can see you. I can run. That way. Yes, alarm call is there.
And Ajinkya has asked, what kind of equipment do you use, or what kind of gear do you use?
Yeah, so
So if you want to just...
my camera is Canon 1DX Mark II. That is a full frame body, and I have Canon's 300 mm f2.8 IS lens. But because it's only 300 mm, I use a 2x teleconverter. So effective focal length is 600 mm, and all these photos are with 600 mm frame camera. Of course, they are cropped in Photoshop, but yeah, with this equipment, all of my photos.
Well, thank you so much, Vinod, for sharing all your wonderful photographs with us. It was really a visual treat, especially the Spiti Valley ones were wonderful. Even the earlier ones, I mean, and we are really sorry that we couldn't show the ones around Pune. But like you said, maybe we'll do a session again about those.
Yeah,
Thank you, our listeners, for logging into our programs. It really helps us, encourages us to keep inviting new guests and to keep bringing interesting topics to this forum. And last but not least, thank you so much, Sanjay Deshpande of Sanjeevani Builders, for being our big support and our mentor in this venture. And he's always encouraging us, to do better. So thank you, Vinod, and
thank you all. Thank
thank
you,
you all.
Jay, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.